The set of gates opened down the middle, but the one at his right had fallen, while the one on the left was barely still attached to the frame. Beyond the gates, a crystal path ran straight for about 100 feet, and at the end of it, there towered an exquisite mausoleum that had proudly weathered 5,000 years. JJ's eyes were drawn to the marble floor. Beyond it, his quarry's coffin should have lain weathering the ages.
Sorry. I know you've been sleeping here peacefully for 47 centuries, but so long as your grave's here, the village says the capital won't grant them an expansion budget. Now, I don't know if you nobles have a heaven or not, but head off to your reward in peace.
When JJ finished saying that, he got off his steed at the door to the resting place. Taking his protection canceller off his saddle, he set it to disarm any kind of mechanical defenses and waited for the OK light to flash. Though it usually finished with even high-ranking nobility in 10 seconds, this time it was over 30 seconds before the blue light lit up. That was proof the grave and its occupant had been safeguarded by a terribly advanced defense system. JJ switched his head into battle mode. Somewhere in his mind, his long string of victories always inspired overconfidence and inattentiveness, and he had to wait until those were gone again completely. And while he was doing that, his opponent attacked. He was dressed in the resplendent garb of the typical nobleman. However, he had dozens of tiny spheres circling him at a dizzying pace. As the energy to drive any machinery should have been cut, the spheres were undoubtedly operating on some unknown power source that wasn't bound by natural laws of our world. JJ suddenly stoked the rapidly dwindling urge to fight within himself.
This'll be over in a moment.
Before his foe could be engulfed in murderous intent, JJ kicked off the ground. Pulling out his sword, sheath and all in midair, he held it lengthwise up by his eyes, his hands grasping both the hilt and the end of the sheath. Just as his right hand drew the blade, his left swung around. The blade that sped at his foe's heart was one that had been concealed at the bottom of the sheath. One of the spheres circling his foe intercepted JJ's blade in midair. The instant the two made contact, the blade was vaporized in a flash of light, and 3 more spheres went after JJ. A split second before they could hit him, JJ made his landing. A visor covered his face, and he used his left hand to shield his chest, and his right to cover his abdomen. He wasn't in a position where he could dodge. All he could do now was trust in the merchant who'd sold him this armor. Blistering heat scalded his arm. Making a great leap backward, JJ desperately tore off the gauntlets. Throwing them to the ground with flames still spouting from them, he poised himself for action. His will to fight wasn't shaken, but his thoughts settled on escape. He wasn't at all confident he could elude the spheres, however. As if he'd just read the hunter's mind, the enemy's lips twisted into a smile. The spheres raced forward, but they halted midway between JJ and his foe. His opponent turned to the right. In a stand of trees that had been reduced to shadows, there stood a figure in a black coat. More than the eldritch aura that billowed from him, it might have been his evident beauty despite all the shadows that had frozen the nobleman.
D.
The shadowy figure stepped forward. The spheres glided into action. D swung his right arm. Undoubtedly, it was the hem of his coat that whipped up the wind. JJ bent backward from it, and his foe reeled as well. A flash of light bleached the noble's form white. Spheres blown into confusion by the wind had collided. The ring of light spread everywhere, and from its center leapt the figure in black. Trailing smoke, D landed right in front of the nobleman, and then carved him from the top of his head all the way to the crotch with a single stroke. Having picked himself up again, JJ opened his eyes just in time to see D pull his blade out of his opponent's chest and return it to its scabbard. Though he turned in JJ's direction, it was unclear whether or not his eyes even registered the man. The figure of unearthly beauty returned in silence to the spot where he'd first appeared, and there he mounted the waiting cyborg horse. Darkness began to cover the forest, while horse and rider melted into that darkness as if returning to their lair. JJ said nothing, but merely watched them go.